to Open Center, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Now, give the time over to Mr. Daniel.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for coming and actually, staying to the end. I was afraid I was going to be preaching to the crickets. I'm Daniel Williamson. I'm the managing director of OpenStax College as well as Connexions. And I'm also joined by Christy Jensen from the University of Minnesota and Mark Morvan. And today, I'm asking a kind of provocative question. Sure, we're all open, but when do we get to share? Because if you think about it, we're out there, we're creating all of these repositories. We're creating all this content. There's no unifying way to find this stuff. There's no unifying underlying technical format. And the promise of open educational resources, we've all heard it over and over again. I think I've said it maybe a million times by now. The promise of open educational resources is that technology will work. That's the promise. And that technology makes it easy, and intellectual property makes it legal for us to share this stuff, right? Makes it easy. Let's focus on that word easy. It's like the music industry, right? We can all nowadays go to iTunes or Spotify or download something from a Creative Commons licensed music repository. We can rip it to a new CD if we're really old school and need to stick it in our car. Or if we want to be a little bit more hip, right? We can go to Spotify, create this awesome playlist, share it with all of our friends, right? It's easy to do. It's really easy to do. Why is it easy to do? Because all this content is now digitized. It's in an easy-to-use format. We got MP3s, right? We can do all these new, interesting things because it's standardized, magically standardized. But the promise of open educational resources is kind of like this tape right here, right? We're sitting at a dual-deck cassette player, lining it up with right when the radio song starts, and pressing record, right? Hoping that we're going to get it just right, piecing it all together, and then it ends up like this, right? We're going to have to figure out how to take this tape, wind it back up, reassemble the casing, and then once we've actually gotten it into this format where we might actually be able to transition it to digital and share it on the internet, we got to make all these decisions. Where do we put it? What license are we going to put on it? Are people actually going to be able to find this content and reuse it? Are they going to actually be able to make adaptations? Am I going to get the credit that I want for my work? Am I going to be able to put branding on it the way I want, right? And so we have all these challenges that's resulting in this fragmented OER ecosystem, right? Intellectual property challenges. We all like different licenses. I like CC BY, you might like CC BY and CSA, and that's fine, right? But we have to fit, Mark's shaking his head. But we all have different reasons, and we all have different stakeholders who need these different licenses. And what we need is a technical format that will actually allow us to understand, let the technology help us understand how we can actually use these different licenses together. We also have a lack of easy-to-use tools. Okay, I'm from Connexions. It's horrible. It is so bad, so bad. The technology, how many of you have ever tried to edit XML? Yeah, it's horrible. But I have good news. We have a new tool set coming out. We've been working with Kathy Fletcher on this beautiful new editor, which it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to demo because my computer's all the way back there. But if you want, I can meet up with you afterwards and show you all the progress we're making. We have this strong desire for ownership. When I create something, I want people to know I put a lot of time and effort into this, right? Also, for institutions like the University of Oklahoma or Minnesota, we want to put our brand on it so people know that there's a quality associated with the content we're producing. And most importantly, from my standpoint, we lack a technical standard for these materials. We have, MP3s in music. What do we have in OER? PDFs. We have HTML. We have ePub. We have XML. We have all these different formats that don't really work well together. Have you ever tried to copy and paste a PDF into a Word doc? Doesn't work very well. In addition to that, that fragmentation in the market is preventing us from really crossing over into the mainstream and producing products that people can really use. And one of the biggest reasons is because they can't find it. The number one cited reason why faculty who like OER, this is the people who actually think OER is beneficial, the reason why they say they have concerns about open educational resources, difficulty in searching. They don't know where to find this stuff. They don't have a comprehensive catalog of materials to choose from. And also, they are really concerned about the time that it's going to take for them to learn to use this stuff. And so we really have to address this issue. And so what are we doing about this? We're moving towards a federation. Are any of you Trekkies? Okay, good, just making sure. And so we're moving towards this federation. I've been talking with the University of Minnesota, British Columbia, and also Oklahoma about this idea, and several others, about what do we need? What are the baseline standards for creating an organization that's federated around these standards? And so, of course, we're not actually going to build the USS Enterprise. Instead, what we're focused on is building something that looks a lot more like this, where you have a central repository where all this content is indexed and stored, but then you also have different institutions and organizations that have these nodes. They have these distributed repositories. So as a for instance, to make this a little bit more concrete, say the University of Oklahoma wants to create an open textbook library for their faculty. They really care about quality. They want to go through all the stuff that's in the central repository and say, this is really high quality stuff. I'm going to pull it out, I'm going to lock it down so that my faculty can have access to this. They can play with it, they can remix it. They provide all the branding that they need to make it feel like the University of Oklahoma or the University of Minnesota or your institution. And then what they do is they get the same sets of tools that the central repository has, so they can take and edit and improve all of this content. They can make these new adaptations. And what it allows us to do, because we're sharing a common underlying technical framework, such as HTML5, is push it back to the central repository, so that we're constantly sharing it back to the central place where anybody can have access to this content and pull it out and adapt it for their local use. And in addition to that, so say I have an OpenStax college book that's sitting in this repository, and Oklahoma has chosen to use it for its faculty. If I come along and I update this, they get the updated version too. So it allows us to push this content back and forth and create a seamless place where we can really work together to create a meaningful OER ecosystem. And so I think now we're going to switch it over to hear some of the key perspectives on why this is important, and we're going to think about it from the faculty perspective as well as an institutional perspective.
Mark, I raised my hand earlier. I'm the executive director for Center for Teaching Excellence at the University of Oklahoma, but I was a faculty member for 16 years before that. So I'm coming from a faculty standpoint, faculty perspective. If we look at this, and why is OER? So starting with the advantage here, right? We're creating the curriculum we want to teach, not the curriculum that was created and gained the largest adoption. I was lucky enough early in my career to find an outlaw chemistry text. With this outlaw chemistry text that was custom published from North Carolina State, I was able to totally revamp the way general chemistry is taught in a small college in South Texas with a 65% Hispanic rate and an over 50% first generation rate. We were able to improve general chemistry success rates by this revolutionary curriculum from the 60 to 65 range, which go back to your home institutions or find somebody that knows somebody, about normal for general chemistry, and we were able to get it to the 85 and 90% range. Well, what did it take? It took me developing the curriculum that I thought that population needed. Would that curriculum work everywhere else? No. But I found one outlaw text that would allow me to do it. This is 1999. If we think about making changes to your courses on your schedule, one of the things that drives faculty nuts is that every 2 to 3 years we have to update every single thing. It takes weeks to do it, and we get no advantage. We're not moving forward and enhancing the learning. All we're doing is making a new update because they decided to go from 25 chapters to 26, and I had one author that I used several times, and it was 25, 26, 25, 26, 25, 26, and I did check. They just had a new edition, went the other way. Okay, and then finally, at the University of Minnesota, they are doing research that should be in the textbooks now, not 3, 6, 9, 12 years from now, right? So for the faculty, right, they're passionate about the research they're learning now. They're not passionate about the stuff they read when they were grad students, right? So putting that in there brings the passion into the class, brings the engagement into class. So what are the challenges for faculty? Time. Right, and as Daniel said right there, it's locating it. That's a big one. How do you locate it? How do I evaluate it? Creating materials to cover any of the gaps. It is like the mixtape, right? You find something here, you find something there, and then you have to create it. Now what do I do? Do I have to learn XML? Do I have to try to pull this into a Word document and do something with it? Creating ancillary materials to support the course. At the University of Oklahoma, we're pushing OER with the faculty, and this is one of the number of things in our large enrollment classes, is the ancillaries there. Online homework assessments for large enrollment courses, again, availability of independent homework systems is essential. So there's some of these things we're going to have to address if we're going to get faculty over this hump. Now, what does Vice Center do? We lower the cost. And the one we're focusing on time is adopting open access, our low-cost course content. First, work with faculty and the university libraries, and we do have an OER librarian. This came up in a couple of sessions earlier about how do we get the library involved. We, over the last year, have actually brought in an OER librarian to work with faculty. Provide training on the methods to adapt, assemble, and create. This is the one where it's really a pain. This is sitting down with a faculty member with a dual deck cassette recorder and teaching them how to do that. Right? Come on. It's to the point now where we shouldn't have to do that. Technology is to the point in everything else that we should be able to sit down at a computer screen and with a little bit of technology background be able to adapt to whatever's there. I shouldn't, with my LMS, have to take 3 hours to show them how to upload the syllabus. Right? And I shouldn't have to take a whole workshop or a series of workshops to show them how to remix, reuse open educational resources. And then finally, increase the awareness, and that's what we're doing. And I think I'll hand it now over to Christine.
So I'm channeling Dave Ernst. If you know Dave, he couldn't be here because he couldn't be in 2 places at once. He's doing another presentation at the moment. Dave, if you're unfamiliar with his work, has been working on a tool called the Open Academics. It was called the Catalog, and it's recently changed the Open Academics Library for about 2 years now. And the libraries came on board as a partner working with Dave about a year ago. If you're unfamiliar with the Open Academics Catalog or library, it is meant to overcome some of the barriers that have already been mentioned today. So Dave has been thinking about what are the barriers to faculty adopting open textbooks, and one of those is how do they know where to find them. And Daniel is talking about how do we create this federated instance of finding materials. But the focus of the Open Academics Catalog was on curating a collection. So based on a set of criteria, not a huge set of criteria, but a fairly small set of criteria, there are a selected set of materials in the Open Academics Catalog that faculty can come to and find. In addition to curating them based on that set of criteria, we are also trying to add reviews of those materials so that you can get around that quality issue. So if faculty members who are experts in a particular area provide their review of that material, then when the next faculty member comes in, they can say, oh, well, I know that person, and they say this is a good textbook. So I can think about adopting that without having to worry about the quality too much. Or they can go ahead and review it themselves and add additional reviews to that material. So that was kind of the early version of the Open Academics Catalog, and it's at open.umn.edu. So if you want to take a look at it, go ahead and jot down that address. But when the libraries came on board, one of the reasons that the libraries were brought on board is that we wanted to talk about extending some of the functionality of the Open Academics Catalog. So one of the things that we thought about is how do we create an environment where we can actually become a repository. So the current version of Open Academics is actually just what we call a referatory. So when you come in and do a search for something, we link out to a location where that item is located elsewhere. And I've heard it mentioned already a couple times here, but with the Flat World situation that happened last year, there were a huge number of Flat World titles in the Open Academics Catalog, and there was a huge flurry and concern when those materials were going away. We didn't know if anybody else was going to take them up, and we had a large conversation about whether or not the University of Minnesota would download and maintain copies of those, and we weren't really situated at that point in time to do so. But it raises the question, do we need to have a place where we put materials so that they don't disappear? And libraries are known for curating and keeping content accessible over time, and so we bring that perspective to the table. So we were talking about building our own back-end repository, and another thing that we wanted to do with Open Academics was extend the functionality to allow faculty to revise content on campus and provide access to a place where they could deposit that material, send their students to access that material easily, and where faculty could make those revisions available to the world. And we were talking about doing our own back end when conversations started to develop with the folks at Connexions, and we decided that rather than develop our own back end, we'd like to use the development tools that are coming forth there. So we're, one of the things that we're also working on is going out and talking to other folks about doing faculty development on their campuses. And we've been trying to discourage people from creating their own repositories, but every time we go somewhere, they want to do it. They want their own space, they want to do their own thing, they want to brand it themselves. And so this model allows that possibility to happen while still maintaining a central connection and access to those resources.
So I think we only have a few more minutes. Is that the question time, or is this
5
the
minutes
actual-
until questions.
Ah,
and
that's
then
excellent.
questions after that.
So yeah, so we're basically done, but I was going to give a demo, so I'll give out one parting thought. You know, this fragmentation is a huge challenge, and I don't have all the answers yet. We're at square one, we're starting out, we want people to contribute to us, we want people to tell us what are the baseline requirements that you need in order to even consider joining something like this federated model. You know, there's a lot of people who will say, well, this has been tried before, because it has. But I think we're at a point now where the tools are easy enough. We're choosing a standard that's HTML5, so it's really, it should be simple enough for us to work together. It's not some strange XML format. And so really the technology is getting better. We should be able to do this. And finally, I guess my closing thought is, you know, independently, we can all make a huge difference, and we're seeing that. But when we work together, I think we can actually change the world. We have really smart people in this room, and we can do it. So I encourage you to talk with us afterwards, and if you want to see a demo of Connexions, what the new version is going to look like, and see some of the editing tools, I'll find a square a chair somewhere so we can actually talk. Okay, thank you very much. Questions? Yep.
What are your initial thoughts on how to handle versioning issues?
So Connexions is already set up to handle versioning. Amongst the repository itself, yeah, that's not about versioning, sorry. I just realized that there's no contact information. And also for my colleagues, if you send me an email, I can connect you with them. I should have had a better slide there. But so Connexions already handles versioning. With regards to a broader, with all this content residing out in the open space, we'll have to add an additional element to the ID that shows what repository it's coming from. But there's still a lot of technical features that are not decided. So I'm not a technical person. I'm pretty much a manager. I have a vision, but but I need technical guidance. Yep. Questions? Yep.
When you sort of the topology of the centralized to distributed repositories, there's a big Department of Education in the US project called the Learning Registry that kind of does that, or alternatively, you've already got OEI, PMH with repositories. So there's sort of that stuff there already.
Right.
I just wondered where you were.
So with Learning Registry, tell me if I'm mistaken, but is there a really standardized editable format of all the content?
It's just
No.
metadata.
It's just metadata, right? And so what we're proposing is really designing that underlying technical format that's going to facilitate frictionless remix, right? So the metadata is the first step, and we are going to implement LRMI and Connexions, so we'll have a lot of that tie-in. I'm not super familiar with Learning Registry, but all of our information can be cached there. Really what we're trying to address is one, discoverability, which Learning Registry probably helps with. But in addition to that, putting it into this common source format and using common tools where we can actually have a community contributing to one place, but still maintaining ownership. So I think that that's a step, but we need to go further in order to really get to that CD sort of model where we have the common MP3 format where we can actually work together.
I think also being able to brand it as University of Minnesota, University of Oklahoma, BC, or any of the other institutions gets involved, there is a bias within R1 faculty, and having it adapted, adopted, created in those areas can help. And so being able to put that skin or that brand on is very beneficial, which I don't believe many of the other central repositories have.
You can skin them. They've all got themes, and the learning registry is just it's a minimalistic metadata store. You can do what you want in front of it. It's very much back end. You would put. I mean, I'm not singing its praises. It was more for information. It seems like you're looking for more of a repository that's also an editor.
So as kind of a vision, right? And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's kind of a vision. I want to make this really simple. I want it to be like Drupal Garden, right? Where you come along and say, I want an OER repository with tools that can allow my faculty to customize this stuff. Click a button, sign up for an account, create your own OER repository, brand it however you want, right? It sits in the cloud, it pulls from Connexions or wherever, and then it spits it out to your faculty. That's what I want. I want something really simple like that.
And I don't think it's just the faculty bias. I think there's a lot of politics on campuses around this. And so when you're trying to sell something to admin, I think a lot of the desire to skin or own things is related to the politics. And I think if we're going to be successful long term, that we have to have buy-in from admin as well as the faculty.
Question?
Do you have a time frame where you want to develop these, or you expect to have these common format? Because
Well, so Connexions is open source, so all the code is available today. However, the Connexions sort of horizon, I hate giving out dates, but I will do it. So Thanksgiving, we hope to have the new web front end for all the Connexions rolled out. So you'll be able to see what that's going to start looking like. You would be able to customize this in the long-term vision of the federation. And then the back-end sort of editing tools, those are coming later. They're very difficult. Kathy's been doing tons of work. We've been working with her on that. And so that looks like it's going to come out closer to probably March 31st. Yep. And then, so moving from there to federation, it requires money. So this is still a dream. I don't want to overpromise that you're not going to have this tomorrow. This is still a dream. We're seeking funding for it. We have partners lined up that are really interested. So hopefully we can make it happen. Yep.
Did you just say the web front end for Connexions will change around Thanksgiving?
That's correct.
So students who are currently using
They'll be
is
happy.
there-
They'll be happy. It's going to look exactly the same. The URLs aren't going to change. They'll be able to see everything, get everything they want. But yes, there is going to be
You have to look in
visual
different
change.
places to see, find things.
Not really. I mean, I can show you demo.
They'll like it.
They'll like it.
Yeah, I saw it this
That's
morning.
gonna be right before exams and I'm
Well,
just ready to
so the
freak out.
legacy site will still be available for a period of time, so you'll still be able to find all that content.
Okay,
That's a good concern.
yep, thanks.
Any other questions? Wow, I did a really good job. All right. Well, thank you very much. If you want a demo, we can go out.